welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this 4-game MLB DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. And it is playoffs time, so I'm excited. MLB playoffs are here. Definitely a little bit of a different format this year, so we'll try to include those things in my analysis as we're breaking down these daily slates. Before we continue, I have released multiple MLB packages over there on Patreon where you can get access to things like my starting pitcher data sheet that you see behind me during the videos, my hot hitter StatCast data tool, my team hitting data tool, my bullpen data, my power rankings, and my cheat sheet. And I'm going to try to give you guys some sneak peeks of that as we're talking about these games and breaking down the matchups because especially in playoffs when you're dealing with better pitching, you're going to have to really break down these pitchers, break down their splits, break down the spots we can target, and in particular, probably gonna have to get a little bit sneaky. In MLB playoffs, you're gonna have to pick some guys that are gonna hit some bombs off some good pitching. So yeah, with that being said, you can follow me over on Twitter at KJK_DFS, and let's go ahead and start breaking down this slate today. So as always, I like to go ahead and sort my sheet by carry. It's fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts to figure out the guys we're gonna want to play in our fantasy lineups. And the top guy on the slate today is that in Garrett Cole. Comes in with a 36.6% K rate, a 15.4 swing strike rate. The hard ball stuff's good. He's got a 32.1% K rate against righties, and then a 41.2% K rate against lefties. So Garrett Cole, absolutely elite, and that's great and all. But once again, MLB playoffs, we're gonna have to break down these teams, who he's facing, and factor in all of these things when we're building our lineups because you're dealing with the best of the best. So 8.6K on DraftKings. He does have the K rate stuff, obviously. Let's go ahead and start looking at my team hitting data sheet for the Indians. Figure out if there's anything we can really exploit here. And we're looking at their lineups. Their statistics. They have a 23% K rate. And they're pretty average across the board, actually, in the WOBA, the ISO, the slugging, the BABIP. And then against right-handed pitching specifically, they have a 23.8% K rate. So, they are obviously a good team. They can hit well, but I would say the K rate is there. And then when you factor in that Garrett Cole has a better K rate against left-handed hitting, the top hitters in this lineup are from the left-handed side. So definitely could have interest in pitching Garrett Cole. And then, we're going to break down the good pitching first, and then we'll run back through because it's the playoffs, obviously. So we'll have to run back through and, we'll point out Garrett Cole's weaknesses and stuff when we're looking at the hitting, and that goes for all these pitchers. So don't think I'm just going to only say good thing. We're gonna run it back and figure out the bad things when we start breaking down the bads. Second on the list to target is that in Blake Snell. He's got a 32.1% K rate, a 16% swing strike rate. The ground ball, the fly ball stuff's good. A 31.4% K rate against righties, and then a 34.9% K rate against lefties. So, Blake Snell, another absolute elite arm. And when you're looking at the team hitting data for the Toronto Blue Jays, you can see they don't really have the highest strikeout rate. Against righties, they perform really well. But against lefties, it does get worse. Not a crazy amount, but enough to where it's a significant boost for Snell in the matchup. 22.3% K rate, and then all the hard hit rate, the fly ball, and all that stuff isn't quite as sharp. So definitely could have interest in some Blake Snell today. And then when you look at the Vegas lines that we're seeing, he's a 200 favorite, which is by far the heaviest favorite on the slate. So Blake Snell, definitely a good option today. The only thing I would warn you about is the Tampa Bay Rays, and they do have a short leash on their pitchers. A lot of times they will sort of rush to get these guys out of the game and go to the bullpen if necessary. They have not rush. That's not the right word, but they don't care if they have to pull Snell. If he gets in a tough jam and he's pitched good 5 innings and they just need to go to the bullpen, they'll do it. But I would say I like to think he's going to have a longer leash in the postseason as well, just as far as them relying on him. He's the ace. He's the guy that's supposed to get them there. So not to contradict myself, but these are the things we have to think about. You got to figure out which side of the fence you're on there because traditionally they will pull, but I would say also, in my opinion, they're going to give Snell the opportunity to get him there. He's the guy they pay. He's the ace. All these things to think about. Shane Bieber, taking on the New York Yankees. He's been absolutely elite this year. He's got a 30.4% K rate, 13.9 swing strike rate, 30.2% K rate against right-handed hitting, and then a 30.6% K rate against lefties. Absolute stud this year. When looking at the Yankees, we can see that they have a 22.1% K rate overall, which isn't bad really at all, and then a 20.7 against righties. However, with that being said, I mean, while their K rate isn't bad, that's factoring in the entire regular season. And when you're factoring that they're facing Shane Bieber, and some bats have been out of the lineup for a while with a high strikeout rate, guys like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. Shane Bieber definitely has the K upside here. Definitely can go out there and dominate. And he's an absolute stud. Garrett Cole against Shane Bieber is going to be an absolute pitcher's duel. I don't see there being a lot of scoring here. But there probably is some spots that we can target at low ownership. So we'll break that down when we get to the bats. But I mean, those two guys are 1A and 1B on the slate. Kenta Maeda is a guy that's been very solid, but Houston definitely has a low strikeout rate. When looking at his splits, he's got a 28.6% K rate overall. He has a 34.1% K rate against righties, and then a 23.2% K rate against lefties. So Maeda, really good against right-handed hitting when it comes to K rate. We prefer to target him in right-handed heavy matchups. And when looking at the Houston Astros lineup, they definitely do have mostly right-handed hitting. So that does factor well for us in this matchup with Kenta Maeda. The only thing to mention is that when looking at the team hitting data sheet that I provide on Patreon, you can see that the Astros really don't strike out a lot. I mean, very impressive strikeout rate, 19.9. Anything below 20% is just really impressive. And then against right-handed hitting, they have a 20.5% K rate. So while the matchup does appeal to his splits, and while he does have that huge bump, we talked about a 34.1 against righties and then a 23.2 against lefties. Just disclaimer, the Houston Astros really don't strike out a ton. So, and then Lucas Giolito is, probably the last option that I would promote. I don't know. We have to have salary relief in our lineups as we're building. So you could always drop down, and it's going to be interesting. But in my opinion, in the playoffs, you're going to need that pitching. I mean, it's all pitching in the playoffs. That's what wins you ball games, and then I think that's what's going to win you for the most part, your daily fantasy sports lineups, because I don't really see any offense going off. I don't know. We'll get to that when we break down the bats, but Lucas Giolito, definitely a guy in a good matchup here, taking on the Oakland Athletics because they have some Ks, and Lucas Giolito's been on top of his game. I always mention it, but he had the no-no early in the season, which is always a big deal. I mean, if a guy throws a no-hitter, he's probably feeling pretty good about himself. 25.5% K rate, a 12.6 swinging strike rate. The hard hit rate's good, a 26.4% K rate against righties, and then a 24.5% K rate against lefties. And more importantly, when we're looking at the team hitting data sheet that I provide and looking at the Athletics specifically, they have a 24% K rate overall and a 23.5% K rate against righties, which is, we're only talking a few percentage points here, but that's very significant in baseball, and they are by far, the top team to target as far as K rate on the slate. And I think that Lucas Giolito in this particular matchup can really thrive. Comes in as a 127 favorite, and he's 8.3K. So you're paying the same price tag for him as, or not the same price tag, but you're paying $300 less for him than you are Garrett Cole, and then from Shane Bieber, you're paying, $600 less. So it's going to be real interesting building these lineups and figuring out which of these guys we're putting in. So, but with all that being said, I think we can kind of transition over to bats. I mean, we do have a few more pitchers left here, but to be honest with you, the guys that are left, I don't really think I want to play. So who I haven't talked about, just take that for what it's worth. I will be, if you're interested, I will be filling out my power rankings and my cheat sheet that I provide over there on Patreon here. We can get my top plays, each position power rankings, which just breaks down optimal plays, guys I've dug into pitch data, guys that really excel against certain stuff. And then my power rankings, my cheat sheet will break it down by price tier to help you decipher who you should be paying for in each price tier on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So, because I know salary is going to be a thing, and we're going to have to decide. So if you're interested, go ahead and check that out, linked in the description. However, let's talk about some bats. We haven't got to talk about some bats yet. So, I think we can go ahead and just figure out the guy with the worst hard hit rate on the slate first, and that's definitely Matt Schumacher taking on these Tampa Bay Rays. He has a 23.5% carry. It doesn't really strike anyone out. The hard hit rate's at 41.7%. Against righties, he does have a 398 slugging giving up and a 47% hard hit rate, which, not good. The 47% hard hit rate definitely stands out in comparison to the rest of the pitchers on the slate. And then the K rate's very low. And then against lefties, he's actually a lot better. So, it's a little ironic because, you would think we're going to be all in on targeting him. And not that we aren't definitely interested, but he definitely does struggle more against right-handed hitting. And these Tampa Bay Rays have a ton of lefties. So, clearly the lefties, he's a lot better. So it's kind of like, dang, I wish we had some more righties to play with. But we definitely have some righties with power. We have Arozarena in the 3-hole. We have Hunter Renfroe. Willie Adames has a ton of power for a shortstop. And then Mike Zunino, a catcher. So I definitely like those guys. And then the thing to mention is the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. When looking at my bullpen data sheet, the Blue Jays right here stand out as not the greatest team. I mean, I have my sheet sorted by xFIP right now, and they have a 4.94 xFIP. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 8th worst in the league. So while he is a lot better against lefties, we can definitely still go ahead and target. These Tampa Bay Rays because they're definitely taking on the least talented pitcher on the slate. So they may be chalky, but it makes sense. So he's the first guy I have to talk about. Moving further along, this is when things start to get, we have to look kind of splitsy because all these pitchers are pretty good in the hard contact. Shane Bieber's second worst on the slate, but I mean, we've all seen what he's been doing this year. But specifically, we definitely have some guys we can target right-handed hitting against. And the first guy I'm going to talk about is Jesus Luzardo taking on the Chicago White Sox because the Chicago White Sox absolutely slug left-handed pitching. And specifically when looking at, hitters in their lineup, they've just been hot. I'm going to give you guys a little sneak peek of my hot hitter StatCast data tool that I provide over there on Patreon. And, I mean, this is a color-coded sheet of the top 100 hitters in the league in barrels, and it breaks down, how hot they've been in each category. Things like exit velocity, max exit velocity, the amount of barrels they've hit, their barrel percentage, their hard hits, and then their hard hit percentage. And you got guys like Eloy Jimenez and Jose Abreu that are at the top of the list. And like I said, I mean, this is top 100 in the league. I mean, these guys are really standing out as far as just crushing baseballs this year. And specifically against left-handed pitching. And when you're looking at Luzardo and his numbers, we were just breaking down. He does give up a 417 slugging against right-handed hitting. He gives up a 314 WOBA. His ground ball rate is a 42.5, not the greatest on the slate that features so much elite pitching. So to me, I really like these White Sox today. I mean, we're only on the 4-game slate. Ownership might be high, but I don't really care. I like them. I like, primarily the righties that crush lefties. So Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, Edwin Encarnacion, James McCann, Luis Robert, Adam Engel. All those guys are really good against left-handed pitching. So I just really think this is a great spot to go ahead and target them. So they're the first team that I'll point out outside of the Rays. Next spot as far as righties are concerned would be Zach Greinke. Looking at Zach Greinke's splits against right-handed hitting. He actually really excels against lefties if you go over here, but we're not onto the lefty splits yet. But anyways, Zach Greinke has a 415 slugging, a 39.8% hard hit rate. The ground ball, the fly ball stuff isn't the greatest. It really stands out as actually being bad compared to the other pitchers. So I definitely think that we can target Zach Greinke with some of these right-handed power bats for these Minnesota Twins, and that's going to be Nelson Cruz, Byron Buxton, Miguel Sano, Mitch Garver. Those are the guys. And once again, when I pull up my hot hitter Statcast data tool, we do have a guy that represents these Minnesota Twins in Miguel Sano. And Miguel Sano is, way up there. I have my sheet sorted by exit velocity as of now. I mean, we could look into all these other things, but that's what it's sorted by. And Miguel Sano's second out of anyone in the league behind Fernando Tatis. So the guy's just been crushing. 95.7 exit velocity, 115.8 max exit velocity. He's got 21 barrels. He's got 24.7% barrel percentage. He's got 50 hard hits. He's got a 58.8% hard hit percentage. So, yeah, he's a guy that's been crushing all year. Zach Greinke clearly has some hard hit issues against righties in comparison to the rest of the guys on the slate, and I definitely think you could target the righties here, and I definitely like Miguel Sano when breaking down how hot he's been all year. So, like those plays. I mean, Lucas Giolito would be the last guy to mention targeting here against right-handed bats, and we had talked about the Oakland A's, how they do strike out a lot, but they definitely have some guys that slug from the right-handed side of the plate. And my favorite options would be, Marcus Semien, Mark Canha, Ramon Laureano, Steven Piscotty. Once again, those are the splits that match up. Those are the guys you want to target. They have the power, and they do hit from the right-hand side of the plate. So those would be the guys I'm looking to target. Moving over to lefties. The two guys that I would target on the slate right here are next to each other, Shane Bieber and Kenta Maeda. Shane Bieber taking on the New York Yankees. The New York Yankees are a very right-handed heavy lineup, so that's going to fare well for him because his only struggle is against lefties. So with that being said, Aaron Hicks in the 3 spot would be my favorite option, and then you could play some Brett Gardner. But really, it's an Aaron Hicks thing, I think. Aaron Hicks one-off is a great play, so I want to point him out real quick. And then lastly, Kenta Maeda. What we had mentioned, Kenta Maeda splits against righties and lefties. He's very, very good against righties, even though the ground ball and the fly ball stuff is actually very bad. I want to point that out. So the ground ball and the fly ball stuff is very bad against right-handed hitting for Kenta Maeda. So I wouldn't feel the worst about throwing in some righties with power, like a Springer dinger at the top of the lineup, because the fly ball and the ground ball stuff's there. So if he can get one elevated, he can definitely go yard. But as far as slugging is concerned, he definitely struggles a lot more against lefties. So the guys that we're going to want to target in this lineup include Michael Brantley, Kyle Tucker would definitely be my favorite option, and then you could throw in Josh Reddick for a salary relief option. So like those plays today. That's pretty much my overall breakdown on this playoff slate, guys. As always, before I let you go, I do have to give you guys my home run call of the day. And my home run call of the day is definitely going to be a Chicago White Sox bat. We had mentioned Luzardo and his slugging given up against right-handed hitting is the worst on the slate. And it's just, I broke down my Statcast data on these Chicago White Sox. They've been crushing lefties all year long. And I have to pick a Chicago White Sox bat. And today it's definitely going to be Jose Abreu. Jose Abreu in the 3 spot at 5.1K on DraftKings. You're going to pay for him, but I think he's just in a great spot to go deep. It's the postseason. We're facing the best pitching in the league as far as when we're picking our bats. And I think that Jose Abreu definitely stands out as a big elite option on today's 4-game MLB DFS playoff slate. So get some Jose Abreu in your lineups. He's going deep. I appreciate you guys tuning into today's videos. If you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos that I release. I'll be here breaking down these MLB playoff slates, all playoffs long. Going to be interesting, definitely. And, as far as the only thing I'll mention before I let you guys go is these first games are being played in the ballparks, before they move to the bubble and the neutral site zone. So hitting conditions are going to be a thing. Minnesota, the hitting conditions not the best at 56 degrees. Oakland, it's at 79, so I like that a little better. The Rays play in a dome, and then you got 60-degree weather in Cleveland. So, in Tampa, they definitely have better hitting conditions than these other spots. Then in Oakland, they definitely have better hitting conditions. So I want to point that out. I didn't mean to skip over that. My brain's ready for that bubble, but these first few games are going to be played at the actual location. So keep that in mind. That's what I'll leave you guys with. I appreciate you tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. I wish you all the best of luck tonight, and have a good one. Bye.